Okay, WRAL state government reporter Will Doran joining us now. Will, thanks for being here. So let's start with this. The State Board of Elections, they did rule that there were no signs of fraud among these 60,000 votes that Griffin has questioned. Can you give us an idea of how the Board of Elections came to that conclusion that these votes were all cast legally by the voters?
Yeah, I should say that vote was not a unanimous vote by the Board of Elections. It did come down in a 3-2 decision, but that is the decision of the board. And they said, look, all of these people, when they came to vote in North Carolina, everyone who voted this year had to show ID. And you had to show that photo ID to prove that you are who you say you are. And there is an exception form if you don't have ID. And to fill out that exception form, you have to put down your social security number. So one way or another, they've either seen your ID or gotten your social security number in order to prove that that's who you are.
Griffin says that there is identification information that's missing from these 60,000 voters in question. That said, isn't there this entire database showing all of the names, 60,000 names? They were read aloud at protests outside of the Capitol today. So do we know who these people are, or do we not know who they are?
Well, that's the big question for courts to decide here. But yes, there is this database, and it's all public records. And you can see that in that database, there are missing information for these voters in question. There's a federal law that says the state should be recording their driver's license number, their social security number, and for whatever reason, for these voters in question, that information is missing. For some people, maybe they've changed their name. They've gotten married, they've gotten divorced, they've changed their name, and that change just didn't go through in the system properly. For other people, maybe they did provide their information when they registered to vote, and whatever government official was entering that in a database just did it wrong or forgot to do it. And so a lot of this is not on the voters themselves. A lot of voters think that they did everything right and had no idea that they were even eligible to be challenged like this.
I feel like this story is discussed in two kind of ends of a spectrum. Some people see it as Griffin being a sore loser, maybe grabbing at anything to make up the margin, even if it means throwing out the votes of people who did everything right on their end. Or you could see this as election officials being a little sloppy with tens of thousands of votes in a race separated by just 700 or so voters. So, you know, again, what happens here could determine who won that race. I'm wondering where people should put themselves on the two ends of those spectrums. Where should we sit when figuring out how to feel about all this?
You know, it's probably true that the state elections board hasn't done all of the work that they needed to do on this database. But it's also true that it would be unprecedented to tell people that they're allowed to vote and then go in after the election and toss out their votes. So, you know, it's going to be up to a court to decide this in the end. Right now, we're just going to have to wait and see what the courts do. In the past, we've seen instances where courts have ruled on political issues along party lines of those courts. You know, here in North Carolina, we elect our judges in partisan elections like we're talking about right now. We don't know yet how the partisan breakdown of this ruling might eventually turn out, but that's just something that we're going to be watching closely.
Will, thank you so much. We could keep talking about this. You know, listen, Will did a fantastic frequently asked questions piece over the weekend. Do yourself a favor, find it at WRAL.com. It's right under the NC Capital section. It's great work, and if you have more questions, let us know. Will, thank you.
Thank you.